So the suggestions that I have made to our team at the BMU University and now at this new live museum is that I would be absolutely delighted if in the next 3 years, none of the classes take place in the classroom.
Yeah.
They should take place in a studio or under a tree or on a lake. The downloading of content is so easy today because that's what we were using classroom for. Please remember, for the last 100 years, our classrooms have been for one-way delivery of what we consider knowledge. That is possible to download sitting in your bedroom, in the playing fields, in the cafeteria. So the classrooms or the places where we gather, I think need to be used for debates, discussion, workshops, conclaves, conferences, and challenging each other so that we can constantly get better through experience, not just my experience, but our experience. And that, I think, is true learning. And I'm hoping that is the model that more and more of are willing and hoping to follow.
No, I think you're absolutely right to interrupt there as well, because I know that that word of reimagining, the kind of how we learn, where we learn, and I think, you know, that is really exciting. The idea that we've already started to have to reimagine how we teach, and technology does enable that, doesn't it? And we're going to be unpacking some of that throughout the day today, but also some of the subjects that you touched on there around the kind of ecology and the larger questions. And I know that in some of that vision, there is this kind of golden thread of the UN Sustainable Goals. And, you know, this is a really significant element, isn't it, of STEAM? And you started off with your very interesting and engaging talk that was about, you know, how we unpack and how we find solutions to complex problems. And I think I wondered whether you could talk to us a little bit more about, you know, how you see those big problems coming into the educational kind of setting, and yeah, what would the approach be of this kind of new vision of yours?
So I think that's an essential part of any education, and we are now more and more focused on this. And I can again speak from our own experience as to what we have done already at our university. We have, I'm told, and I should tell you that this is not our calculation. We had a team from MIT come and tell us that we have the highest experiential learning content of any curriculum they've seen in the world ever in any university. And I actually got worried. I said, tell me, is it good or not so good? And their response was quite interesting. You know, they said, look, we have all been talking about this for almost 30 years, but it's very hard for an existing university to change because by their nature, they're conservative and they have a history of how they do things. So while we keep on adding new things as we go along, but real change becomes hard. And so I said, that's probably the advantage we have. We had no legacy, at least at that university. We just said, make it practical, make it experiential, make it real, and expose these students to what goes on. So we also have the longest practice school, I'm told, anywhere, where the students are attached to, depending on the school they're in. So if they're in engineering school, they're attached to either manufacturing or technology companies. If they're in the law school, they get attached to a law firm or a company's legal department. So they see firsthand how real life situations are handled, how problems are solved, how research is done in a real setting, how these things will play on the commerce and the financial outcome of business. So the understanding is necessary as to also how it reflects on other things. It's not just single-minded focus on doing research for the sake of research. Because research, which can be translated to real situation and benefit us and humanity, I think is the way that education needs to go. And that is our attempt in all of our institutions. And I'm hoping that's what we will do along with BCU when the MBCU launches its programs in Ljubljana, that we will focus on the problems of small industry. We will focus on supporting innovative startups by becoming an incubator, that we will focus on education programs both at the undergrad and graduate level, which will allow people this wider perspective of learning from multiplicity of disciplines but at the same time, focusing on real life skills and the output of real life skills in real life situations as well.
Great, thank you. And you touch on the transdisciplinary approach, which you know is a really core element to STEAM and the new STEAM House too as well, and working alongside. And I think that idea of flipping our students to be researchers, our academics, researchers as learners, and also bringing in industry as part of that really exciting transdisciplinary approach. And I have a question actually from a panel member, which is great to see those coming in. So one of the questions that we've got for you, Sunil, is, and you touched then on those multi-disciplines, and one of the things that we can find is that we can be very protective about our discipline and our academic mission. And so sometimes it requires a generosity, doesn't it, to be able to work together. And it's quite interesting how that can be a challenge sometimes in higher education settings. And I've got a question here from Sarah, who says, do you find STEM faculty in India receptive to the idea of integrating the arts with their disciplines? And what challenges are you overcoming in order to enact a STEAM approach? So it's kind of really just a sense, a barometer from you on how kind of...
Simple answer is no. They are not very receptive. Again, for the same reason, because this kind of threatens status quo. They have been doing things in a certain way, and they've been told for long, you're successful, you're doing a good job, you get credits at the end of the year for having something done well, having done something well. Now you're telling them, by the way, this is not what you should be doing, this is what you should be doing. Implied message sometimes, and I have to say it's an incorrect message, is that what you are doing was not okay. And I think it's also important when you pitch for this new method of teaching, you have to both allow people to realize that you're helping them to develop as well, that they become better at what they do, not just their teaching, but their own learning gets better, and they are better equipped to address real life issues for themselves as well. So I believe it's only a matter of time, because those who do not accept it will get pushed to accept it. And that's never a nice way to actually, not a nice place to be pushed into accepting something which you mentally do not accept. So I think it's important that initiatives like the one that BCU should get much more exposure. They should get much more publicity. They should be talked about at many more platforms and at more conferences for more and more people. Again, like I said earlier, the whole idea is not new. Stanford in the US has been amazingly successful at doing some of these things. There are a whole lot of other examples around the globe. I think we also need to create a network of those who are doing this well and who are willing to share their experiences with others, for others to see why it is in their own interest to gradually shift, if not switch over completely in short order, because time is against us. And I can tell you this, it's a big wave that's coming. When it comes, it will start creating a distinction between those who have adopted this and those who have not. So you don't want to, we've had too many other distinctions in the world of disparity. I would hate for this to be one of them in the future, but it well might become if too many people still continue to resist to change. That clearly is coming.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think so it really calls upon our academics as well, doesn't it, to really think about their own self-development and growth away from their own discipline mission, and to think about this kind of new hybrid. And often I've heard this kind of view from academics trying to make sense of STEAM that say, but arts is only a kind of, 10% of it. But I think that's missing the point that STEAM is a completely new approach. It's a completely new way of thinking. And I think you put it really clearly there, Sunil, in terms of the risks of not doing it is a major one. And so we need that transformation to take place in our academic communities as well. I've got another question, and do keep them coming, our attendees. So I've got a question here. It says, Mr. Munjal, you've explained STEAM as equality of opportunity, suggesting we are inclusive to take advantage of those that we educate as a society. And that's the kind of, and the question is that right? Is that how you're kind of phrasing it? And how do we go about convincing those in our governments that this will get better economic outcomes, whilst they often think about how they will cut these particular areas back? So I think it's really just maybe some thoughts from you around, how can we...
I think this is actually one of the key pain points, is governments and decision makers and their exposure or lack of it to this new method of teaching and creating opportunities. Because please remember, this should directly lead to real opportunities in life. That's one of the functions we have of education, besides making better human beings. It is for them to have a productive life post their education, or continuing while they're educating themselves. I have to tell you, this is also one of the things that's going to create a distinction this time between nation states. I have just come back from Dubai just 2 days back. I had some very fascinating meetings. They have set up something called the Future Foundation. And the Future Foundation is doing exactly the things we are talking about. They are focused on how life is likely to be in the future, what will have a positive and a negative impact on society, and how do you ensure that your population, your nation, and those who deal with you have a leg up, because they have realized this, they have anticipated this, and made that gentle or sometimes significant shift towards that. And they are also creating, incidentally, a museum for the future, where they will talk about all these things and they will demonstrate them to people at large. It's not just for their people, they will open it to the whole world. And they also set up a conference for governments. So a very interesting conference, which talks of some of these very same things. How we as people need to interact with each other. Why it's important to create a vested interest for peace around the world. Why water is critical and important. So things which look like they are important for decision makers, but they're rarely discussed at platforms where we go across geographies. It's usually retained in small groups where you have this conversations. And I think it's important that more and more governments using whatever platform, whether they want to use WHO or United Nations or even the trading platforms like WTO, any and everyone, I think, should become a facilitator for some of this ideation. Because eventually, what is the purpose of education? Except to create a better world for ourselves, and more specifically for our future generations. And therefore, it becomes critical what role we play today will actually demonstrate itself for not just decades, but also centuries in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal. What a great introduction to this STEAM conference today. This has been really inspiring, certainly. I'm sure it has been for others. I can see from the chat and the comments. And one of the things that creativity often brings is optimism and some hope, actually. And I'm left with a really strong, positive sense of that's future fit thinking, and talking about that kind of, imagining how we're going to be living in the future. You've given us a great start to this conference. We're going to be talking more. You're going to be very much part of the panel discussions as we go forward. I'm not quite finished with my session yet. So we've got 3 of our STEAM fellows who are going to be showing their projects with a 5-minute glimpse. And I'm going to be introducing them very shortly, but I'm just going to see if Julian Beer wanted to say anything else before I proceed. Thank you so much, Sunil.